here on, is it November 9th, 2020, shock and amazement, at 7:03. Roll call, please.
Director Dye?
Yes, here.
Director Lohman?
Here.
Director Penrose?
Here.
Director Clark?
Here.
Director Ruddock?
Here.
Chair Slater Carter?
Present.
All present. We have a quorum.
We have a quorum, and for public comment, I don't see any guests who might want to comment or oral communication. Does anybody from the board want to make a public comment at the beginning?
You know what? Actually, Michelle Dragon is trying to get in. She says she wants a passcode. She's having the same problem. I'm going to give the password. She emailed me.
So Chair Senator Carter, you could come back to her if that's your desire.
Exactly.
It's really up to you.
Yeah, I don't see that there's much to discuss on the consent agenda. Thank you, Jeremy. And so let's do the consent agenda. There are 4 items. A is the minutes for October 12th, the regular board meeting. Approved disbursements for November 9, 2020, monthly review and expense report for the period ending September 30, 2020, and quarterly investment report for the period ending September 30, 2020. Do we have a motion?
So move.
And a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Director Dye? Director Dye, you're muted.
All right. Yes.
Okay. Director Lohman?
Yes.
Director Penrose?
Yes.
Director Clark?
Aye.
Director Ruddock?
Aye.
Chair Slater Carter?
Yes. And moving backwards now to public comment, I see Michelle Dragoni is here. Michelle, do you have a public comment you would like to make?
I made a suggestion to you and Debbie Ruddock about doing some videos for Sam. I had a time where I was seeing one of those tractor vacs, doing the sucking, and Barbara said it was the county, it wasn't Sam. But it begs the question of, like, when all this big equipment is doing stuff and when the men are out there and women, if we did a series of videos that sort of explicated what you guys do, might be really educational for people.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind discussing that. I don't know if we have to have it on a future agenda, but I think, some story about our guys and gals and what they do, and what a sewer plant does, and the value to the community. I mean, it's critical. It's sanitation, like foundational.
I did a good story I did a good story for Montero when at Seal Cove their pipe broke, and it was a really good story because it's right on a fault line. And it just begs, the explanation for how complicated our systems are.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's good to tell stories. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I completely support the idea of doing some stories about actions. I don't think that particular one makes sense because it's not any of us or Sam, but I think there's a lot of things that are happening, especially improvements that are being made. Like we could put something together to show constant progress. We probably should have done something on the new IPS section, but I mean, in going forward, I would support this.
Good. I think we should do it as a special, as an agenda item, so we can delve a little bit deeper into what it would cost Sam. And I'll finish up in a minute. Rick?
Yeah, I just wanted to say Montero had to cancel its real public tour. So we did a virtual public tour in Zoom and had a whole bunch of people sign on. And we did a similar thing to that. So I think that'll be a good agenda item.
Yeah, you just direct, I'll wait.
Deborah Penrose. And then Matthew.
I think that it would be a good chance to talk about wipes. And that we
Again,
could make that part of it.
we can never talk too much about those horrible things.
Right.
Matthew?
Well, I was going to bring up wipes too, and that these videos can reconvey that message. But also, I think it's important that I don't think the general public understands the level of maintenance that's required throughout the whole system. And it's being constantly worked on every day. So I think it'll be really educational.
Good. Well, I look forward to having this on the agenda. Michelle, you and Keishan, and I would suggest bringing in Clemens if he has time, because of our virtual tour of our plant, and it was pretty successful. If you want to see it, or of our district, our water district, it is on MWSD at the website, so it's worth looking at. Good. Do we have any more public comment? Not on the agenda. Okay, we'll move on to having adopted the consent agenda unanimously. We will move on to regular business. Item 1 is reject all bids for Portola pump replacement project.
So as per the board's direction, we went out for a bid for the replacement of the pumps at Portola. We do have the pumps and motors. It just needs to be, the existing pumps and motors need to be demolished and install new pumps and motors. And at the same time, we also thought we could incorporate painting at the areas where the pumps have been installed. Now, you hear something? Okay. Yeah, so we received 2 bids, out of which only one was responsive. The second bid was not responsive because they came in late. And so we ended up having only one sole bidder, and that was priced at $273,369. The engineer's budget for this was about $220,000, so we were way high. And therefore, it is recommended by the staff to reject these bids and check other options. We have some ideas in mind. The staff has ideas in mind of possibly separating it out and giving the demo to one contractor and doing the painting to some. We've been successful in the past, and then there is a remarkable reduction in price. If you see the unresponsive bid itself, which came in, it was only for installation of the pumps, because they were not planning on doing the demo and painting, and that was priced at $140,000. So we can possibly get savings if we separate it out. So we're looking at other options, and we'll come back to the board at a later date. But primarily at this meeting, we would like the board, we recommend that the board reject all the bids for prior solicitation, and we will check out other options and bring it back to the board at a later date. Any questions?
I support that. Kishan, can you put your screen a little so that your whole head is in the thing, or sit up? Thank you. Yeah, this seems reasonable.
Yeah, I move that we reject all bids.
And a second from Barbara, motion by Deborah Penrose to reject all bids. Roll call vote, please.
Director Dye?
Yes.
Director Lohman?
Yes.
Director Penrose?
Yes.
Director Clark?
Aye.
Director Ruddock? Director
That was, thank you.
Aye.
Chair Slater Carter?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Good. Now moving on, goodness gracious, it's only 7:13. We've got to talk more. The second item under regular business is update on process issues at the plant.
Okay, let me start with saying that we do have certain process issues at the plant. I've been giving updates to the member agency managers as well as to the directors, but for the benefit of the public, we will give some basics of what's happening at the plant and give an idea as to what we plan on doing. So I have put together a short PowerPoint presentation, which I'd like to share. And this would cover only the basics. And after that, our experts will kick in. That'll be Tim Costello and Dan Child, who will delve into it deeper and give more information. So I'd like to share my screen, please. You able to see the screen?
Yes.
Yes, I can
Okay.
see it quite well.
Very good. Okay, now we are having issues of the biochemical oxygen demand, which is called as BOD in short. And if some of you have already seen read the attachment which is provided in the board packet, you will know more about it. But as I told, I will start from basics. So what is the BOD? The BOD is amount of oxygen which is required to remove any waste organic matter from water. And this happens in the process of decomposition by aerobic bacteria, which means it is primarily a measure of quantity of oxygen used by microorganisms in the oxidation of organic matter. So what happens is the greater the BOD, the more rapidly oxygen is depleted into the stream. That means less and less oxygen is available to higher forms of aquatic life. In our case, it's extremely important because we discharge, the sewer discharge goes, after treated, it goes into the ocean straight away. And therefore, which means it's less and less oxygen is available if it's higher and higher BODs are being discharged into the ocean. So the high BOD is the same as for low dissolved oxygen. Since it creates low dissolved oxygens, aquatic organisms become stressed, suffocated, and die. And therefore, it's extremely important that our BOD levels should be well within our limits, which has been laid down by NPDES. So what is a good BOD level? You would see that in unpolluted rivers, the BOD level is typically 1 milligrams per liter. Moderately polluted rivers would be 2 to 8 milligrams per liter. Untreated sewerage would be an average of 200 to 600 milligrams per liter. And an efficiently treated municipal sewage would be typically less than 50 milligrams per liter. So when sewer comes into the treatment plant, it could be between 200 to 600. And as it gets processed, treated, when it comes out as an effluent, it would be less than 50 milligrams per liter. So what's happening to the BOD at SAM? What are the requirements? So as per our permit for the effluent, we need to maintain an average weekly of about 45 milligrams per liter and an average monthly of about 30 milligrams per liter. Now the BOD sampling as required by the permit is required to be done twice a week, which means if we do it typically on a Monday or a Tuesday, then the following week we do it on a Tuesday and Wednesday. And the week after that, we do it on a Wednesday and Thursday. So it's a week after week, but twice a week. The BOD test actually takes 5 days to perform, as the incubation test period is about 5 days at 20 degrees Celsius. So which means if we collect the samples today, we wouldn't know whether the quality of effluent is good or not until at least a minimum of 5 days. So BOD is removed from the sewage by providing a supply of oxygen during the treatment process. If some of you have visited the plant, you see these aeration basins, and they are actually blowing air and supplying oxygen. So that's where a major part of the BOD is removed. So this oxygen supports the bacterial growth and breaks down the organic BOD. So let's take a look at the BOD results. Now, the average influent has always been, It's always been around, effluent has been in the typically about 300 or so, 300, 350. And these are the typical results which we've got starting from, I've just projected September 30th onwards until 11/3, which we received today. So the first indication was that the influent on 10/1, where we saw that the influent BOD was 1900 mg per liter. But at that time, it was not alarming because the effluent was still 17, which was within limits. And therefore, we thought that maybe there was some mistake, or maybe there was a typo or something in the influent BOD, or something was not right because we got our effluent right at 17. But the first red flag came up on 10/5, the test at 10/5. The results came in on 10/22 or 10/23, wherein the effluent was showing high of 59. So the 1100 influent got us the effluent treated at 59. And that's where it started, and we observed that the influent was continuously high. It was never in the 300 range. It was 560, 600, 700, and then we called in consultants from consultants who helped us with what needed to be done. First and foremost, we suspended the receipt of leachate from Oxmountain landfill because we thought they could be bringing in more toxics, and we suspended that on 10/21. And then we started investigating and saying what we can do short term. And we started adding ferric chloride and anionic polymer on 10/28, and thereafter started changing on 11/2. The result we got today was on 11/3, for the test done on 11/3. And you see that after we've changed to cationic polymer and secondary on 11/2, the effluent has drastically come down to 109. It's still not acceptable limits, but we are hoping we'll get better results after 11/3. And we are expecting the results starting from tomorrow. So this is the last of the result that we've received. We just received it this evening. And in the last column where I've said HMB 300.75 and Terrace 326, these are actually influent BOD levels. We have actually placed samplers at 4 locations, at 4 different locations. One in Half Moon Bay. That means as the sewer is entering into the plant, all the sewer coming in from Half Moon Bay gets sampled. And these samplers can actually measure every hour on a 24/7 basis. And we've installed that from 11/3. So starting 11/3, today is 11/9. Every day samples have been collected, but it takes time to get the results. So we'll start getting it from tomorrow. So the Half Moon Bay influent measured at 300.75, which is acceptable. That's what we would expect on a normal day. And the second one, which is mentioned, is Terrace, which is basically in Montero area. That is the streets of Terrace and Carlos. I believe it's close to Moss Beach in Montero area, and that is also within acceptable limits. And we had actually placed samplers in Princeton area and also at Portola. And unfortunately, on that particular day, we started actually on last Tuesday, which was actually 3rd. And unfortunately, that day, the samplers did not work. It had got flooded or there was some problem. So we couldn't capture those samples that day. But nevertheless, from 11/4 onwards, all the samplers at the 4 locations have been functioning well, and we should be getting results starting tomorrow. So this gives you an idea about the final effluent BOD on a weekly average. We've actually taken it from the start of this year and see how it's gone. You've seen that we've always been well below the limit of 45. It was somewhere from 20 to 25, and then it slightly shot up to 32 this week of 34, but then past few weeks, it's gone up. The same with monthly average. The acceptable monthly average is 30. And you see we've done very well starting from January until mid of October when it shot up. So high BOD influent could be possibly due to high levels of organic pollution coming from various places. And typically high strength BOD values can come from breweries, distilleries, wineries. And it could be that unknowingly these places could be having some bad batches of product, or they could be rinsing their process tanks. They could be doing their first rinse, which could be just discharging very high level of BODs, or they could be cleaning operations at these locations. And we've observed that typically it happens during this part of the year. In the month of October, November, we've realized that we've got pretty high BODs, but not to this extent. This is the first time that we've experienced something as high as this. Or it could also come from places where they handle fertilizers or frozen fisheries, leachate. These are typically extremely difficult to track down because they could be intermittent, they could get diluted in the system, or it could not necessarily be any one of these. But we're still making an attempt with these samplers that I've mentioned. We should be able to at least get some indication of what's going on. So how is SAM addressing the situation right now? So what we've done is we've chemically enhanced, treated the primary and secondary influent. So basically small doses of chemical components have been added to increase the operating efficiency of these sedimentation basins. So what happens is chemicals, they cause suspended particles to clump together by process of coagulation and flocculation. So the particles settle faster, and by which, you know, the BOD can get improved. We're also holding flows coming into the plant during daytime. We observed that the daytime flows are definitely higher compared to the nighttime. And we found that the pollution levels itself are high during the daytime. We've seen because of large flows. So therefore, we wanted to balance out the flows, and therefore we shut off flows from Montara during daytime and balancing flows to get uniform flow all day. We are unable to do this of flows coming from the south, coming from Half Moon Bay, because we do not have any place where we can stop the flows and store the sewer, while in the case coming from north, we are able to use the Walker tank or the wet weather storage expansion and totally block all the flows and then balance it out so that we get uniform flow. We've also considered increasing the aeration capacity by getting old aeration basins to work, because primarily, since it's a high BOD, that means they need more air. So the existing aeration basin is actually fitted with fine diffusers, and there's only one basin. That capacity is around 325,000 gallons, while the old aeration basins, for some reason, we never got any diffusers. We never used it for quite some time. They are fitted with coarse diffusers. We never changed it to fine diffusers. So we are in the process of getting these old aeration basins to work with coarse diffusers itself. And as mentioned, we've installed samplers at 4 different locations: Princeton, Portola, Moss Beach, and Half Moon Bay, which are input to the plant, which we think could be potential areas where toxins would be coming in. A short-term solution is retrofit the old aeration basins to increase aeration capacity to handle such unusual BOD loads. And a long-term solution is what we're thinking of, is to install aeration equipment in aeration basin 4 to allow long-term treatment. The present basin, which is 3, has been in constant use since 1996. We've never had a chance to do any maintenance because we do not have backup of aeration basins. We do not have backup of diffusers. These are the only ones running since 1996, and these are with fine diffusers. So the objective is to install aeration equipment in aeration basin 4 to allow long-term treatment, and then slowly start maintenance on aeration basin 3, so that we would have concurrently all 3 aeration basins with fine diffusers. And this, of course, is a long-term process solution, and we will discuss more solutions and more possible solutions and bring it back to the board possibly at the next meeting on November 23rd. So with this, I finished my presentation, and I would like Tim and Dan to give a brief. Tim, if you could add on to a little bit on on the process issues of the plant, that would be helpful, and then Dan can chime in.
For the most part, you pretty much covered everything. We're actively trying to find the source of the BODs, but your presentation pretty well hits all the marks. I mean, unless there's questions, like I said, we're still trying to figure it out.
Dan, would you like to add something?
Just real quick, I think Tim said what I was really mostly concerned about is the biggest solution is to try and find that source, but it is literally looking for a needle in a haystack, maybe a fairly small haystack in this case, but it's tough because they can stop discharging at any minute and then you never know where they're coming from. So this could take quite a while, even a year or more before we actually find them. We may have to set up samplers next fall in anticipation of this and see if we identify it in advance. Right now, we're doing a lot of data review from the past to try and find out exactly why or how bad this has been in the past, because as Kishan and Tim have mentioned to me, it is something that has happened in the past. They just didn't realize it was a recurring thing. So record keeping and being able to track these kind of things is really important. And unfortunately, right now, Tim's having to do it all manually, but he is getting data together and we're getting there. So other than that, the plant, we believe, is starting to come around. As Christian mentioned, it takes about 5 days to get a test result, and that is literally expediting. The normal turnaround on these tests is about 2 weeks. So right now they're calling Tim every day and telling him the results of the tests so that we have information as fast as possible. But it's the plant has been extremely upset. It's an activated sludge treatment plant. Activated sludge is a pretty resilient process. It's pretty able to deal with things that come in. But you know, if it would have seen a number, and I think we saw this when that 1900 hit on the first day, we still had a 17 BOD coming out. And I'll kind of use this analogy that it's like sitting down for a big Thanksgiving dinner. When that 1900 came, all those bugs in the system that were there to take out the pollutants said, Yahoo, we're having Thanksgiving. They filled up on food. And then a day or so later, when it came back again, they were too full to eat. And because of that, we're having that BOD that's passing through and going out the effluent of the plant. And just in real layman terms, that's kind of what's going on. So now I've seen several hands go up, and I'll Chair Slater Carter, do you want to take over?
I'm muted, Chair.
Yes, I do. We'll go with Rick, Deborah Penrose, and then Deborah Ruddick.
I just had a quick question first. Are these samplers relatively portable? So if we find, I'll just say, a bad sample, the samplers can be moved to sort of straddle it and try to, focus down more and more and more if we're actually getting samples?
Yeah, so yes. I'll answer this. The samplers that we're using right now, it's sometimes they're referred to as discrete samplers. They'll actually fit inside the manholes. So the areas that we've deployed them, no one knows they're out there. And the purpose of that is that it's sort of a blanket search that we do initially. We're trying to hit, large net areas. And if we find something that pops, which we're hopeful, but as Dan had alluded to, there is a good probability that we might not find anything right away. But the point is that if we do the larger net, we find something that pops in the samplers, and then we're able to redeploy the samplers in a more restricted area and pinpoint down from there. So
I just wanted to say that it wasn't my brew batch that I did 2 weeks ago that caused this problem.
I can't confirm nor deny that.
We knock on your door.
Okay.
All right,
additionally, Rick, Director Lohman, I wanted to mention that these are the same samplers which we installed during the recycled water project in December 2015. We actually installed these same samplers at 7 different locations to find out the calcium, sodium content, and we worked on it. So it's the same thing.
Good. Deborah Penrose.
Yes, I noticed that there was a large spike in August. And I wondered two things. One, is that something that happens on an annual basis? Do we expect a large spike in August? And two, should that have forewarned us that something was going on?
The spike in August, it spiked up. There were the 1100s, and then it went back to a normal state.
Yes.
And unfortunately, when we get our samples, we used to use a smaller lab, and now with the COVID and all that stuff, we had to go to a larger contract lab, and it takes us about 2 weeks on a regular basis to get that. So now when we got those samples in August, we actually got the results about 10 to 12 days after the fact. And by that time, there wasn't anything in the plant that really seemed totally abnormal. Like Kishan said, around this time of year, August, September, we always seem to have problems with settleability. But it seemed like a normal thing, and it seemed like something that we experience every year. And there are certain steps that we do take within the process to control that, albeit put another secondary or another basin online or divert flow into another basin until our settleability gets to a better state that we can actually process it through the plant. It's not something that, was new to us. It's like these little hiccups happen, they happen not, I don't want to say frequently, but they happen enough that we've seen things like this before and we've dealt with them. The fact that we saw these results come in more recently at the 1900 and then the later 1100s and then the sustained high BOD volumes that were coming in, that's something totally different that we've not seen in the past.
So the August blip is something that has occurred that high, at that level, periodically.
Not 1100. I said I'm going back through and I'm back populating. I have to pull all this data manually, so I'm back populating all the data. I've gone back 3 years. I don't have the data sets in front of me currently. I don't know that there were a lot of 1100s. I do recall seeing some 560s, some 600s, but I can't say off the top of my head that I've seen. I mean, I've been looking at data for the past whatever.
Yeah, no, I'm not asking for exact numbers. It just seemed to me that it was almost twice what the other peaks were prior to that.
And then it went back down to a normal state.
And then it went down to a normal state. Yes, absolutely.
And that's
but yeah.
And I think that's what I would add to that is, as Tim said, and I mentioned earlier, that he's having to manually get all this data. There are systems available now that are relatively inexpensive that you can set up that will give you these trends and that type of thing, so you can see them over a historical period of time, which Sam has not had that, does not have that ability really even today. So I suggest that we do look at doing that in the future to give them the tools to be able to see if there's a trend that's changing and put alarm in place and notify them that that's happening, rather than after the fact and reacting to it. They can be more proactive.
Yeah, I'm not at all trying to place blame. I'm just curious because it seemed like such a large jump. And I was curious if that was something that was because of more tourists during the month of August. I don't know. So more restaurant use, more effluent coming from the restaurants. I mean, I didn't know if maybe that was something we see on an annual basis or.
Sometimes you see peaks in different holiday periods, different things going on the coast. You will see peaks. I mean, unless I pull days and dates in the data and try to see a trend that would maybe lean towards something like that. It all depends on how I put the data together. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm pulling the BODs and the influent and effluent BODs and the dates, and just trying to get everything, in a spreadsheet so that we can see it over periods of time and look for trends, historical trends.
No, thank you.
One last thing is, we only sample 2 out of 7 days, so we really don't know what's going on those other 5 days of every week, and 20 days out of every month. There's stuff going on that there's no way to know what happened there.
Deborah Reddick?
Can we use like the fats, oil, and grease inspections to survey establishments, about practices or accidents that may have been, beyond their control that are unreported, but, use that process, even if we have to jumpstart, even if it's like 6 months away from their annual fog inspection, maybe using that as a tool to get information.
Yes, Director Ruddock, you hit the nail on the head. We've actually taken the services of a consultant who's been very familiar with the pre-treatment and all that. He's actually commencing inspections starting from this Thursday.
Right.
And yeah, we have him on board, and he'll be doing all these at these critical locations.
Yeah, it seems to me turn up some, at least give us some clues.
Sure.
So yeah. Okay, thanks.
Catherine, Barbara's there. You're muted.
Matthew, you had a question first, and then Barbara.
Yeah, I have a question. There was the table in the slide presentation. There's a column, primary BOD. What's that, and how's it different than the influent BOD?
Tim, you want to answer that?
The primary clarifier is just it would differ from the influent, because the influent BOD would be raw. The primary clarifier is a mechanical process, so there's nothing biological going on there. The only difference is that we do have the ferric chloride that were added into the primary, so there's going to be some removal in the primary clarifier, and that's why it's slightly less than the influent. Dan, did you want to have anything?
The major thing, Matthew, is that in the primary clarifiers, you settle the solids to the bottom that go to the digester, and that takes a lot of the BOD that is in the water out and sends it over to the digester for treatment through an anaerobic rather than an aerobic process. And typical primary clarifiers, it's a wide range, 25 to 40%. Some people even say 50% of BOD is removed through that settling process in a typical facility. So it's strictly a physical removal of the BOD due to settling.
I see. Okay, and I know that this had to be reported to the regional board. What kind of expectation do we have about when does the board start to get excited about this?
They're already excited about this.
They're excited.
Yeah, the first thing we had to do was switch over to daily sampling. They would normally do a twice a week sampling. So the first instruction they gave us was, since you've gone past your weekly as well as monthly, you have to do a daily sampling. So most probably we'll be doing daily sampling even for the month of November, because we've already gone past our levels for the month of November too.
So would we expect heightened attention from the regional board if we haven't figured this out in 6 months or a year?
Oh God.
Can I say something real quick here, Matthew? we don't want to hide things, but at the same time, Jeremy, I'd really suggest you guys talk about this in close, get it agendized and talk about it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's a good call. I mean, these are good questions. I think we can say that there is risk of enforcement. There are other risks that we could probably discuss, but characterizing the level of risk from the regional board at this point is speculative because we don't know, but probably appropriate to discuss in closed session. So we could either add it as an urgency item for closed session today, which I think if there is a need for immediate action, we could potentially do, or we could discuss it during the next board meeting.
Okay.
What's your recommendation, Keishan and Jeremy?
My recommendation is that maybe we should take it to the next meeting, but then we would have more results and we would have more action plan. Other than what we've already discussed, we do not have any more action plans.
Okay.
Also, if we were to wait, I would just say that give me an opportunity to discuss with Keishan a little bit and potentially look at some of the dialogue with the regional board and kind of get a sense of the direction they're headed.
I think there's one point I would like to make that everybody should really understand, and that's that this event, at this point at least, is totally outside the control of SAM and the treatment plant. They are doing everything they possibly can to control it and get it back to where it's supposed to be. But the high BODs, we're not seeing 11 and 1200s anymore, but we're still in numbers that are more than double what the normal capacity of the treatment plant is. And, you know, they only have the ability to do what that plant will do. So, you know, the regional board, we'll see what they do, but it really is outside of your ability to do anything because somebody's dumping something on you big time.
Barbara?
Two things. Number one, could you please send that PowerPoint to us separately so we can look at it, so we understand the situation? I mean, we've been aware, you've been keeping us informed, which is great, but I would like to have that PowerPoint.
Sure.
Send?
Typically, I would
Okay.
send the PowerPoint to all the directors, and also we would have it on our website.
Great. And then second, I'm wondering if, because it sounds as if breweries are a potential source of this kind of problem, has anyone talked to the breweries to see if they've changed what they're doing, or if there's any possible? There's only a few, but we do have some in our communities, and, you know, it might be worth finding out what they're putting into the system, if they've changed what they're doing in any way.
Not as of yet, no. We haven't gone out to actually talk to the brewery people. And the weird thing with this particular one is I would expect like a brewery or something like that, it would be more like a batch. It would be a batch that they would discharge. This is not a batch. This is a fairly consistent kind of daily discharge that's going on. And that's what makes it strange, to say the least. Our intention is to go and talk to the breweries and to look at their records, their cleaning records, discharge records, whatever they have. But right now we have the samples deployed, so we're trying to, you know, do that without alarming anyone with the samplers to see if we can find something that way also. But we are going to look into that.
We look forward to more information from you.
Rick?
Yeah.
Well, if you need help with the brewery tours, I'll jump right in with you on that. No, you mentioned earlier this balancing act where the north, somewhere in the tanks or something, holds up the flow so it's even throughout the day, kind of like we do with the big rain events too.
Yep.
You said that was a benefit. Is it a little benefit, or is it help balance the thing during the day so all the chemicals can work at a steady rate? Is that the plan?
Is that for
Tim?
me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
that's for
Kishan?
you, Tim, or
Yeah.
Keishan.
I mean,
So what we did with when we were having earlier, more so last week, when we were having problems with the settlability, what we were doing is we would retain the flow from both the Valley Marsh station and the Montera station during the day because we have the storage up there.
Mhm.
So what we would do is we're basically using the Montera, the Walker tank, as a kind of a equalization basin, if you will. And we were taking the peaks off the flows during the day and the peaks off the flows during the night. And then someone would go out at like 11 o'clock at night and turn everything back on during low flows so that we could, because we still have to get the sewage to the plant, but also so that we didn't have the peaks during the day, and it would help with the settleability by not having the hydraulic loading coming through the tanks. Exactly. It seemed to be working to some degree. The sellability is still not, where it needs to be.
Sure.
But that's what we were doing last week. What we started doing yesterday is we turned all the pumps off at Portola, except for the one small pump, or we reset the levels at which they would come on. So now what we're doing is rather than shutting off Montera and Valleymar, we have it going to Portola, but then it's backing up Portola and it's backing up in the wet weather flow storage in the Burnham Strip.
Right.
With just the small pump running. So what that's doing is sort of smoothing out the flows through the plant. So we don't have as high of peaks in the morning and the evenings. So we're kind of trying to shave those peaks off and reduce the hydraulic loading as it comes through the tanks. We're hoping it's helping. It seems to be helping a little bit.
Okay, Rick, are you done?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm okay. I need more information on why you're controlling the peaks. And Deborah, you can go after me. On why you're controlling the peaks, and you're controlling the peaks by holding them in the Portola station or the Walker tank, or because I saw it in the Walker tank the other day, and then you can and also doesn't end up backing up in the intertie as well. I'm a little confused by all of this peak breaking. That's for Tim or Keishan.
You want it, Keishan, or you want me to
Tim,
take it?
you go ahead.
Thank you. So when we back it up, it's not necessarily backing up. I mean, the intertie is a force main. We can't back it up into the intertie, right? What backs up in Montera is in the Walker tank. So we're just holding it in the big tank because we have 400,000 gallons, right, that we can store there. And then the same thing in the tanks in the Burnham Strip. But I guess I'm not exactly sure.
Why are you controlling the peaks?
So I thought I had answered that.
No, not. I'm like I say, I'm a little confused. But because we're not exceeding the capacity of the plant, we're not up at a high storm flow.
Yeah, I see where you're going. Okay, so what happens is depending on the microbiology in the plant. Oh God, let me think about this. Depending on the biology in the plant. What's that?
There aren't enough bacteria to handle a big peak.
Well,
So you give the bacteria a little rest by putting some of it in a tank and then bring it back in again.
It's the settleability of the bacteria. So imagine if you have something that's going to compact down. Say you have a bunch of dirt and water, and it's going to compact down, right? But if the flows are higher, say you have a bunch of water balloons and you're trying to compact a bunch of water balloons in that same space, it's not going to happen. So basically, the way the bacteria is currently is acting more like water balloons than something that's going to compact well. And we're not getting that compaction we need. So by reducing the flow through the plant, we're preventing washout in the tanks. Washout can occur when you have settleability issues and things aren't settling down in the tanks. And then you get hydraulic loading coming through the tanks. It's going to pull the settled material up and out of the tank. So by trying to control the flow through the tank, you have a more steady, a more consistent flow on a 24-hour basis, or a longer period rather. And it allows everything more time to settle out and stay settled, and hopefully reducing any type of washout that might occur. Does that
Okay.
sort of make sense?
That makes sense. Deborah Penrose.
Yeah, I just wondered, is there any way you can add more bacteria to the system?
Adding more bacteria.
Yeah.
Interesting. Dan, you want to take that?
Well, I want to take that. The answer is no, but in the activated sludge process, the bacteria consume the pollutants out of the water and they multiply and you grow more bacteria. So every day the treatment plant does what they call waste bacteria. And basically that's getting rid of the growth that happened. And we waste that to the digesters and get rid of that as well. So the way to get more bacteria is to cut back on that wasting so that the growth is kept in the system. And we have done quite a bit of that here recently, because as Tim talked about that washout, there were days when we had real problems with washout and a lot of the solids went out of the plant. So we stopped wasting, because by default we were wasting out of the plant and grew our own. To go buy bacteria or bring other bacteria in, it is doable, and it does happen. Like if you have a brand new treatment plant, they do go to a nearby plant that's doing the same type of process and get what they call seed sludge and bring it in. But we don't feel like that is a necessary, or I don't think it would help this in this situation. It's you've got enough bacteria there. We just got to get them back to a healthy state and get rid of this excess load. The big key is finding a way to get rid of that excess load to those aeration basins.
No, I understand. I was just thinking, in an emergency situation, it sounds like you are effectively increasing the number of bacteria by holding back the waste. Yeah, got it.
We definitely need to do that.
Any more questions?
I believe Michelle has raised her hand, so.
Really?
Didn't see that. Michelle?
Oh, that's okay. A while back, you were talking about the sensors and just the whole articulation of what you're analyzing was pretty manual. And you guys mentioned that there were some sensors or SCADA, something like that can be used. How much would that cost to install so that you could find out these sort of like Nancy Drew mystery sewage things? And how long would it take to install them? And would it be effective as a strategy for this type of effluent mystery?
Sensors, you're talking of samplers.
Samplers. Yeah. Samplers. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So these samplers are actually bottles which collect sewer, and they're actually placed, there are 24 bottles, so that every hour they actually dip and take these sewer samples, and then the next one comes into line. So these are standard kits which are rented out by the labs. So those are the ones which we've installed. So we don't plan on owning any of these. So it's the labs which would have it, and they rent it out, and they come pick up these samples and take it to the lab for analysis and give us the reports.
And
makes sense?
The last time we needed that was in 2015.
Yes, 2015 December, we did it at 7 locations.
Thank you.
And we have the whole history, but we did not do the BOD because what was important at that point of time was recycled water, and therefore we did various tests for sodium, calcium, manganese, phosphorus, stuff like that for the elements. We didn't do a BOD test at that point of time. So the test is different, but the method is the same of collecting the samples.
And then they get taken to a lab for analysis?
Yes, and then we have to wait for 5 days to get the results.
Boy, that's a long time.
Are there faster labs?
No, it's not a question of the lab not being fast. It's a question of the incubation period for the bacteria, for the oxidation process. It has to take 5 days, a minimum of 5 days. Therefore, you can't perform the tests in less than 5 days.
Okay.
Okay. That makes sense. Any more questions? Seeing none, we are done with our regular agenda and moving right along then to the general manager's report.
Yep, so you have the report in your packet. If there are any questions, staff is here to answer any questions.
Okay, do we have any questions? No? Okay. And then we are to the attorney's report. Oh, Barbara
was
did you have a
waving.
question?
You're muted, Director Dye. She said no. Okay.
That's okay. I read her lips.
Okay.
Attorney's report.
Yeah, we have some short closed sessions tonight, but I have nothing to report other than that.
Okay, director's reports. Rick.
Just one quick one. We just, as everybody probably knows, we took out a huge loan many years ago to buy the water district. Last week, I guess it was, we had some help doing an amazing refinance, and this may be helpful to other people who are looking for money. We refinanced our loan at 1.1%, also keeping the original end date. So it wasn't like pushing things out into the future. The estimate is we're going to save $400,000, all of which goes directly to the water customers out there. So I don't know, this seems to be a good time to refinance pretty much anything if you can get decent rates like that. That's it.
Good.
What was the previous rate? Sorry.
It was 2 point something.
Okay, cool. Nice job.
This is a significant reduction, and it will continue for 8 or 9 years until the loan is paid off. So we're making good progress.
Nice.
Topics for future board consideration. We have an attachment, and if anybody wants to have an item put on, we are going to have the videos highlighting Sam as a future agenda item. And Barbara?
Well, I was just curious. I was looking at this and I was wondering, there's this strategic plan workshop is on there with TBD. It seems like maybe that's something we should be thinking about doing sooner rather than later. Like a number of these things are coming up. I guess we're going to have a policy for minutes and a Public Records Act policy. Will they come out of the Board Operations Committee? Or I'm not sure how. I was just curious. I looked at a lot of these things here and I thought, oh, these are all good things that we need to talk about. And yet some of them are pretty far out and some of them are TBD. So I was wondering about how we're looking at, I mean, the staffing analysis, what is happening with that? That's supposed to come at our next meeting and I don't even know about that. What is that? And it seems like a good idea.
Yeah, that is being prepared by Dan, and Dan is expected to give his staffing analysis to me this weekend so that we could discuss it with the member agency managers next week. And after that, we would bring it to the board on November 23rd.
Okay. And then I don't see the odor control program, which I know we've been talking about for a long time, is not on here. I hope that's coming up soon. And then, of course, I'm very interested in the CIP project, and I guess that's coming up on our agenda fairly soon. So I'm just saying, I'm looking at this list. I think it's an important list for us to keep a look at. And there's a lot of things that, you know, we need to talk about in the near future, I think. So,
yes.
Sure.
Okay, let's recess for 5 minutes and then we will reconvene in closed session.